Welcome back to the show. It's story time. Stories have captured audiences throughout history, from Greek theater to a good novel or a film. And there are also stories told in music. Think of grim folk ballads, the opera, or the concept album. It is the very first rock opera that is on the program today. And it's not a very happy story that is told. This review contains misery, balloons on fire, and tons of late 60s studio effects. So let's raise the curtains, and yes, this is going to be psychedelic.
I'm a road runner, honey.
A rascal band of blues and R&B fans forms a band in Kent, England. Founding members were singer Phil May and guitarist Dick Taylor, who up until then had been a member of the Rolling Stones in their very early days. From a blues rock band on their first two albums, The Pretty Things, named after a Bo Diddley song, soon expanded their style, branching out into a more psychedelic, orchestrated pop style on their third album, Emotions, from 1967, a contractual obligation release which ever since remained unloved by the band due to the softer material with lots of string and brass arrangements initiated by the producer against the will of the band. After that, EMI showed interest in The Pretty Things, who signed a new contract and started working with producer Norman Smith. It was the era of psychedelia, and The Pretty Things jumped right into it. After the band had wrapped themselves immediately in heavy psych rock with the daring singles Defecting Grey and Talking About the Good Times in 1967 and early 68 respectively, Phil May came up with the idea for an album spanning conceptual work based on a short story he had written. This ambitious project then turned into the sessions for SF Sorrow. Despite the band name, neither the story of the rock opera nor its fate after release would be a very pretty one. The lineup of the band had changed over the years and would frequently continue to do so. On SF Sorrow, The Pretty Things are made up of Phil May vocals, Dick Taylor guitars and vocals, Wally Waller bass and some wind instruments, John Povey organ, mellotron and a bit of sitar, as well as Skip Allen and Twink, both drums. The reason for that was that Skip Allen temporarily left the band during the recording sessions and was replaced by Twink, the notorious Twink, who was renowned for his wild stage behavior. Recording the album wasn't easy due to the relative complexity of the material as well as the studio effects the band wanted to have. In addition to that, the story is, in true psychedelic hippie fashion, a bit confusing. The album tells about the life of one Sebastian F. Sorrow, who, befittingly, is born at the beginning of the album. The music here is very cheerful and forward-driving, with a powerful acoustic guitar at the center. It actually reminds me of something the Kinks could have done around that time.
Number 3, there came the cry. SF Sorrow is born. SF Sorrow is born. SF Sorrow is born. SF Sorrow, SF Sorrow, SF Sorrow is born.
Off to a good start, obviously. Cup of tea this time. And we continue with Bracelets of Fingers. What could be more late 60s than a band singing the word love over and over again in harmony? The lyrics are all whimsical, about flying to the moon and picking up flowers. It all seems to be about the imagination and the worlds of fantasy of childhood. But I've also read somewhere that the song actually alludes to masturbation. The band discovered backwards effects, the wah pedal, and Eastern scales. But life then becomes less magical for Sebastian. He grows up and starts working in the factory of misery, as it says in the narrative that was part of the album liner notes, and that is in the center of the bleak town. But he also falls in love with a girl from the neighborhood. She says, "Good morning."
She's now waiting at the gate as the velvet night skies torn. She says good morning. I smile and say the same.
This, interestingly, is one of the few more straightforward rocking tracks on the album. A nice fuzzy guitar and cool drumming can be heard throughout the recording. Any blooming romance is cut short though. On Private Sorrow, we follow the protagonist into World War I with marching drums, a strangely haunting recorder melody, lots of harmony, backing vocals, and sound effects. It's a very evocative track which, despite its gloomy subject matter, contains several really beautiful hooks.
Let yourself hide away. Men walking tall, looking so small, ranges of light disappearing. Mouthing the sounds, face cutting the ground, like the lips of command.
After the horrors of war, another disaster strikes. Sorrow settles down in the USA after the war, but his girlfriend or fiancée who wants to follow him dies in a tragic balloon crash, obviously a kind of Hindenburg Zeppelin disaster. This is quite a skip ahead in the plot that you could only completely follow if you read the narrative that came with the album. Producing such a lavish packaging cost the band a few extra quid. The album turns decidedly dark now. Balloon Burning is an up-tempo acid rock track with wild guitar flourishes, unusual vocal harmonies, and even some Glockenspiel. As if that wasn't miserable enough, side 1 ends with the slow, haunting number Death. A subdued lament, but with a sitar solo. The instrument that couldn't be missing on any psychedelic record between, I guess, 1966 and 1969. The sessions for the album that had started in late 67 were long and intense, often lasting through the nights, fueled on by the band members taking lots of LSD. And they demanded lots of creative solutions from the producer and the sound engineers to realize the sound ideas of the band. Norman Smith himself contributed strongly to the making of the album and shaping some of the songs. Yet recording sessions had to be paused. The band needed money to finance the very elaborate recording sessions at the EMI studios, and at one point even recorded library music to be used in films or for stock footage under the pseudonym The Electric Banana. Some of those recordings ended up in sleazy B-movies or adult entertainment flicks, but there's actually quite a lot of good material that was recorded under the Electric Banana moniker, and it can be found on the compilations The Electric Banana and More Electric Banana. I think that's the name of those compilations. Try and search the internet or the record dealer of your trust if you are interested in this little side project or footnote of the history of the Pretty Things. Flipping the album over, side 2 sees things getting far out and metaphysical. Sorrow, understandably feeling lost and depressed or even suicidal, meets the mysterious voodoo warlock Baron Saturday, who sends him on a journey into his subconscious and to the center of his inner self. The character of the Baron is performed in a kind of spoken word style by, I believe, Dick Taylor on the record. The song has traces of the Beatles and also a strong groove and lots of percussions. Sorrow's psychological inward trip is musically depicted by the more cheerful acoustic The Journey, using a collage of parts from previous songs in the background, and the more dramatic psych rock of I See You, which is about our hero reflecting on memories of his past life. Yeah, trippy. Especially the transitional instrumental Well of Destiny, which is psychedelic experimentation by the book. This is the part that leads Sorrow to a final stage of acceptance, but most of all, disillusionment, and finally, total seclusion from the world around him. In the song Trust, which is the most beautiful and melodic tune on the whole album, he comes to the conclusion that I wipe away a tear from an eye that sees there's nothing left to trust. This is a track that seems to have thrown the Beatles, the Kinks, and early Pink Floyd into a blender, and that very successfully.
Finding that their minds are grey and there's no sorrow in the world that's left to trust. Minds are grey and there's no sorrow in this world left to sitting on top of that white cloud. You're looking around for someone there to trust.
At the end of the record, Sorrow ends up an old man who feels left behind and who has cut himself off from society. Elsewhere, this would be material for contemplative, melancholic music, but the Pretty Things paint the picture of an angry old man going in the heaviest track of the record with swirling drum fills, energetic bass, an aggressive sneer in Phil May's vocals, and a proto Black Sabbath guitar sound. I bet you didn't see that one coming.
Because you built it will soon disappear. Another corporation dig this year.
The album, however, indeed ends with a quiet, pensive little acoustic number, The Melancholic Loneliest Person. The song really consists of only Phil May's singing and great acoustic guitar playing. When we think psychedelic music from the late 60s, we probably usually think of colorful drug trips or Alice in Wonderland surrealism, but instead with SF Sorrow, we get this dark, somber, and moody reflection on the coldness of society, inevitable fate, and the hardships of a life. SF Sorrow's fate was hardly a happier one than the story of its title character. There were delays in distribution, especially in the US, where the Pretty Things appeared on Rare Earth, a sub-label of Motown, and a lack of promotion from EMI, which did not view the Pretty Things as priority artists. The album therefore wasn't properly released until late 1968. By then, the music world had moved on, and some of the psychedelic antics that you can hear on SF Sorrow probably didn't sound that far ahead or revolutionary anymore. In fact, by the end of 1968, arguably, the psychedelic wave had come to an end. Only a few months later, the much more rock-driven double album Tommy by The Who hit the shelves. Add to that some really unfavorable, maybe rather short-sighted reviews from major opinion makers, like, for example, Lester Banks, who probably was simply too cool for rock operas. And it is only logical why SF Sorrow was largely ignored at the time and sunk like a balloon on fire. A disastrous attempt of the Pretty Things to perform their work in its entirety on stage that involved backing tapes not working and too much LSD among the entire crew was a final nail in the coffin. Dick Taylor left the band afterwards, but returned years later. In fact, I've seen the Pretty Things on what must have been one of their very final European dates a couple of years ago, with him on stage. Like other initially unsuccessful albums, such as The Kings Are the Village Green Preservation Society or Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies, SF Sorrow has gained critical acclaim and a kind of cult status over the years. And nowadays it is, in my opinion, rightfully regarded one of the best psychedelic albums in rock history. How much of an influence, also musically, has it been on The Who's Tommy? Beard strokers are still debating. Arguably, the very first rock opera was neither of them, but an album called The Story of Simon Samopath by a band called Nirvana. Whatever the truth about the roots of rock operas, SF Sorrow is as remarkable as it is musically rewarding and creative. Yes, it is maybe a little bit over ambitious and sometimes convoluted and self-important in the narrative, and also damn depressing. But its sheer inventiveness and playfulness, plus great playing and songwriting, make this a top-tier 60s release. You should definitely listen to it if you have a knack for psychedelia or for any of the bands mentioned in this video. Maybe you've got another overlooked treasure from the psychedelic era that you'd like to list in the comments. I now need a tissue to cry into and bemoan the sad story of Sebastian F. Sorrow, only to then listen to it again. Until then, see you for the next Murdock Music Minute.